Hey there everyone, I hope you guys are having a great night so far. We're just gonna wait a few more minutes, give everyone a chance to hop on here and get settled. So while we're waiting, I would love it if you typed where you're from and what your goal is for this evening right into the chat box. This is not a live webinar, this is a recorded video. But I am live in the chat box right now, and I am super excited to be here and answer any of your questions and get to know you. So go ahead and enter that information in the chat box for me. I also wanted to let you know that items will be linked in the description and the right-hand corner of your video, so that you can access anything that I talk about during our training tonight, and so that you have them moving forward. We truly value your time, and we want to make sure that we provide as much information as we possibly can in a short amount of time without overwhelming you. So please know that moving forward, we are here for any questions you might have, and feel free to email me at jess@MaeWoodPhotography.com. Hi everybody, welcome to Learning How to Take Better Photos of Your Family. I am Jess, and I am so excited that you have joined us this evening, and I am really excited to teach you all about taking better photos. We absolutely value your time. We're not going to keep you for a super long time this evening, but we want to make sure that we give you all of the valuable information that you need so that your family photos can be ones that you are happy to look back on for years to come. I'm going to start this evening with an introduction of myself so that you can get to know me a little bit better. Like I said, my name is Jess. I am the marketing director for Great Big Smiles Orthodontics in Phoenix, Scottsdale, and Glendale. I'm the co-owner of MaeWood Photography, and we photograph weddings and lifestyle images. And I also am a consultant for the #1 hair and skincare business in the United States. I am married to my husband Michael, who is also our team lead videographer for MaeWood Photography, and we have one daughter, Caitlin. You are most likely to find me in holey overalls or yoga pants with a hint water in hand and sushi for lunch. I snuggle with my puppy multiple times a day. I love cacti, palm trees, and being on the water, and I also enjoy singing, throwing clay, and doing yoga. I have been photographing love stories and families for 5 years, and there are 2 main things that I have learned. 1, capturing love sets my soul on fire. It doesn't matter what that love is or what it looks like, but it makes me happy. And lesson number 2, one of the greatest and most valuable gifts I can give to a family is a photograph. You know, our babies won't always be little, and as much as we wish they would, our parents and grandparents won't be with us forever. We must document them, each stage of their lives, from their tiny toes and little giggles to their laugh lines and their wise smiles. Life is too short to let it pass us by. And I love photographing families and capturing love stories, but I know that I'm not always going to be in your home or have that opportunity, and I want you guys to be able to capture it the best way you possibly can. I also want to take a second and introduce who Great Big Smiles is. Like I said, we're located in Phoenix, Glendale, and Scottsdale, Arizona. We're a fun, family-owned orthodontist office where we cherish every moment and every smile that walks into our door. Dr. Bowen is funny. You will love his dad jokes, and he truly cares about each of his patients and what their goals are for their smiles. So this evening we're going to cover lighting and the exposure triangle, backgrounds and natural reflectors, how to photograph little kids, framing and the rule of thirds, and photographing large groups of family members. And like I said, if you stay around to the end, you get an extra surprise from both MaeWood Photography and Great Big Smiles Orthodontics. So let's get started. You don't have to be a professional photographer or have a fancy camera to take better pictures of your family. And I want you to know that if you're a mom at home or a grandmom that watches their grandkids, this video training is for you. Regardless of what I'm photographing, I always have my top 4 priorities that I focus on. Number 1, the most important thing is capturing the people we love. Honestly, if I had to pick the one thing, it would just be that. It doesn't matter about lighting or whether your background is cluttered, just capture them. However, if we want to take the best pictures we possibly can, my second priority is lighting. Natural, even lighting from head to toe on whoever you're photographing. Next, it's important to think about the lighting in the background, and then finally, whether the background is clear of any clutter. So number 1 priority is photographing the people that we love most. So I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty of all of the professional terms and things that a professional photographer will have to remember, but I do want to make sure that anybody who is interested in learning has the details and the information that they need. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the exposure triangle. The exposure triangle just means the 3 things that create the perfect lighting scenario for your images. The first part of an exposure triangle is ISO. This is how sensitive the sensor in your camera is to light. So when your ISO is a higher number, it means that your camera or your sensor is going to be even more sensitive to the light. So if you're in a darker room, you're going to want your ISO number higher. If you're in a bright outdoor space, then your ISO is going to be the lowest, like 100. The next aspect that plays a part in the exposure triangle is your aperture. Your aperture is how wide your lens opens. Like opening a curtain on a window, the more the curtain is open, the more light that is let in. So when your aperture is as open as it possibly can be, then it's going to let more light into your frame. Shutter speed is the third aspect of the exposure triangle, and it's exactly what it sounds like, the speed of the shutter opening and closing. The faster your shutter speed is, the better it is for capturing motion, like your kids playing soccer or wrestling in the living room. Anytime you want to photograph somebody that's moving and you want to freeze time, you want your shutter speed to be pretty fast. This means, however, that your picture is going to be a little darker. So when you're adjusting for the exposure in your pictures, you have to think about all of these 3 things if you're shooting in manual. Now, like I said, I'm not going to go into manual shooting today. We're talking about shooting with your automatic camera or your phone, whatever works best for you. But these tips and tricks that we're going to share are going to help you along the way. Speaking of exposure, we want to make sure that when we're photographing our images, we're properly exposing them. So many times I see underexposed images or overexposed images, and the exposure is just how much light is in the image. You can see on the left-hand side, the image of the family reading the book is underexposed. It means that there's not enough light coming into the sensor and the picture is too dark. The picture on the right is overexposed. There's so much light that you lose details in their faces, they look super duper white, and it's just not a very flattering look. But the picture in the middle is properly exposed, and there is a range of proper exposure. It doesn't have to be exactly at one point. There are different styles that you might prefer, but a properly exposed picture makes it so that it looks like your eye is capturing the picture itself. So I'm sure you're wondering, yes, Jess, I am aware of what a properly exposed picture looks like. I'm here to find out how do I get that. Well, I'm going to tell you, lighting is absolutely everything. And when I say lighting, I mean natural and even lighting from head to toe. So when you're in your house photographing your kids or your grandparents hanging out at a family dinner, the number one thing you want to do, if it's daylight out, is turn all the overhead lights off. You can see in the image to the left, this is in tungsten light. So it's overhead light that has that yellow hue to it. There is a window next to them, but the shades are closed, and you can see that there's some shadows on their faces. The skin coloring looks a little off. It's pretty dark, and it doesn't look professional at all. It looks like you took it with your camera phone in bad lighting. The one in the middle, however, is tungsten light from above. You can see that golden glow on, this is my friend Sydney, on Sydney's hair. But we also have the curtains open, so that natural light is also filling in their faces, which makes for a prettier picture, but it's still not exactly what we want. The picture on the right is when all the overhead lights have been turned off, the shades have been open, they're facing the light at a 45-degree angle, and it's filling their faces, which makes it even, natural, and beautiful. Let's look at a diagram of what directional light would look like coming through the window and which direction you should shoot. You always want to make sure that you place yourself in front of the window so that the light is coming through the window, it's natural and even, and whoever you're photographing is facing the window so that the light can fill their face in a beautiful way. Here you can see the difference. On the left-hand side, it's where I, as the photographer, am facing the window, and the kids, that's Warner and Bryn, they are being backlit. When you backlight something, the subject that you're photographing has a ton of shadows because there's not enough light to counterbalance and fill into their faces. However, the picture on the right is on the exact same couch, just on the opposite side, so the window is at a 45-degree angle, to their right, and so the light is filling on their faces, and you can see the difference and how it's the same. I had to adjust settings for lighting, but it's the same camera, the same room, the same scenario, except they're just in a slightly different spot. And it makes all the difference in the world. So you want to make sure you have that natural, even lighting coming through the window and lighting your subject. Okay, here's another diagram, but this is in a totally different scenario. When you're not in the house, you want to make sure that you find open shade. What is open shade? So open shade is where a building, a tree, a structure is providing shade from the sun, but where your subject can look up and see the sky. It's open to the sky. If you're covered by a tree overhang or an awning, you're going to have the reflections of the color of that tree or awning bounce down on the floor and back into your face and actually change the color of the skin tones of the people that you love. When we're in open shade, that does not happen. So you can see in the diagram that you have the sun, you have a building blocking the sun and creating an area of shade. And you have your kid in that area of shade. And they can look up and see the sky, and when they look forward and up at a 45-degree angle, it's still open to the sky as well. And then there's you shooting into that shaded space that is open to the sky and creating a beautiful natural lit experience. Let me show you an example. So this is my daughter, and this is 2 images taken in our backyard. The left one is in direct sunlight. You want to make sure that you're never, ever, ever in direct sunlight. Why? Well, sorry, Kate, but look at the left photo. You have harsh shadows, you have squinting, and you have distractions because of the shadows. I can only see half of her face, her eyes are closed, it's very, very bright versus very, very dark, and there is a better way to do it. And that is finding the open shade. The picture on the right-hand side, she literally just turned around, walked 3 feet over, and I put her in front, not underneath of our porch, and the sun is behind our porch. So she was able to be in open shade. When she looked up, she saw the sky. She has even lighting from head to toe, so there's no hot spots like on the left side, or the left side picture. And she doesn't have to squint. There's no distractions between like the light and dark, and it's very beautiful, and the light fills her face. Here are 3 more examples of open shade. There are no shadows under the eyes, there's no two-toned lighting, they're beautiful and clear. So you can see like the picture on the left-hand side, the sun is coming from behind the building is creating shade. Amanda is sitting in the shade, can look up and see the sky, can look up at a 45-degree angle, and her face isn't blocked from the sky, and it is creating that nice even light on her face. The same thing with Warner in the middle. Warner's eating a piece of watermelon, he's hanging out in the park, there's a tree that is providing shade, but he can look up and see the sky, and he has a little bit of that glow peeking through the trees, and the lighting on his face is even, and the same for Janice on the left. My fourth priority is what's in the background of our photograph. We want to make sure that whatever is happening in the area that we're in, it's not distracting us from seeing what we're actually trying to photograph. We want to try and make sure that our backgrounds are clean, uncluttered, and light. Light meaning that there's a lot of light coming into the background as well. You don't want a super dark background, but you also want a light colored background. If you are photographing up against a red wall, it's going to make your image look super dark. And like I said before, it's also going to be reflecting that red. But if it's a light colored wall, it's going to help that light bounce around and brighten your image. You also want to make sure that it is uncluttered. And this could be as simple as just popping down a picture frame that's hanging on the wall, or just throwing a few things to the side, or just tidying up the pillows on the couch. We are documenting life as it happens, and we're trying to capture our loved ones so that we have those memories forever. I know that you're not going to want to you're not going to have time to just go around and make sure that your house is perfect, to paint all of your walls white, and that's not what I'm saying. I'm just letting you know that when we take 12 seconds, because that's how long it took me, and I'll show you, but if we take 12 seconds and just tidy up, throw things out of the way, unplug things and put them on the floor, you're going to see that we're able to focus on our subjects, or the people we're trying to photograph, and not be distracted by the background. So let's take a look at an example I have here of my friend Sydney and her daughter Bryn. This was literally last night at dinner. We were hanging out and I just grabbed a quick picture. Actually, a few quick pictures, but this one, she just hopped up on the counter. It's an adorable picture. Bryn's got a lollipop in her mouth, but the pantry door is open. We were making dinner, so there's a few things on the counter. We had some Sour Patch Kids. You have the toaster oven in the background with the cord. So when I look at this picture, yes, I see Sid and Bryn, but I also see all of these other things going on that are really distracting. So I timed myself. It was 12 whole seconds. I ran through the kitchen really quickly. I shut that pantry door. I shoved things to the side. I unplugged the toaster and put it on the floor. And I picked up the 2 bags on the right-hand side. And look at the difference. Now we can focus on the beauty of Bryn and her mama Sid, and the emotion that they're sharing, and the giggles that they're having, and the love that they have for each other. And you don't have to go crazy. You don't have to have your house clean, and you don't have to go paint every single room in your house white. It's not necessary. But if you have that window with some lighting coming in and a clear background, it doesn't matter what else is going on, you can get an amazing picture. Let's go back to the pictures of Sid and her son Warner. Let me show you our situation we were working with. We were in the bedroom. We picked this spot because there was a clear wall in the background and there was great lighting coming in through the window, but they have just moved into this house. And Sid was just going through a box of books trying to find something, so there's books on the bed. It's a spare bedroom. There's no need for it to be cleaned up and unpacked right now, but we went in there because it had the best lighting and a white wall in the background. And look at the picture that we got on the right-hand side. We were able to use what we call framing. Sometimes we're not able to clean up the background, or we only have that one chance to grab that shot. And if we frame it properly, you would never know what else is going on in the room or what else is going on in the background. So in this picture on the right, they're on a bed, no pillows, books on the floor, books on the bed, a dog running around, and yet it looks like a professionally taken photo. All right, here is another trick that I always use when photographing my family members. It's called natural reflectors. Light is reflected differently by different colors and different surfaces. If you're outside and you're standing in the grass, what color do you think the light is reflecting back onto your face? It's going to be green. And if you're in that red room, it's going to be red. And if you have a really vibrant neon blue shirt on, it's going to be a really vibrant neon blue. And that's why we always recommend just a natural, light, neutral color tones that can be your natural reflectors. So in the picture on the left-hand side, our natural reflector was the desert sand. Anything that's light, like a light tile on the floor, sand or dirt, sidewalks, white walls, they're all great natural reflectors. So when the light comes into a room or just fills a space, it's bouncing all over the place and back into the faces of your subjects. So you want that light that bounces into the faces of your subjects to be a light, clean, white color. So if you have an extra second, and I know it seems overwhelming and daunting at the time, but you could say, hey guys, let's grab this picture real quick. Just come stand right over here. You've already scoped out your natural reflector. You've already scoped out where the lighting is coming in the best place in the window, and you have a light background behind you. You've already done the work. You ask them to stand there and say, giggle, and you have a professional looking, beautiful picture that you guys get to share and keep for generations to come. Think about those natural reflectors, how the light reflects back into their faces so that they can feel beautiful, look beautiful, and have an amazing picture. I know some of you are thinking, but holy cow, my kids never sit still, or anytime I take out a camera, they make a funny face, or it's just a crying fest. Believe me, I understand completely. I have 5 tips that I always recommend when photographing little kids. And the number 1 is smile with your eyes and be patient. I know how important this photograph is to you, but they're not going to understand. So take a deep breath, continue to smile with your eyes so they can see it beyond the camera, and be patient with them as they play and have fun and be little kids. And that is tip number 2. Let them be little kids. It's okay if they play and they bounce and they don't look at the camera. If we have the lighting and the background cleared out and you just photograph your child or a friend or a family member just being, coloring in a coloring book, relaxing, wrestling in the living room, you are going to capture that moment and the emotion in that photograph without them having to look at the camera and smile. So it's okay to let them be little, to play, and to just capture the moment. The next tip is to get down on the level of the children that you're photographing. I was in the education field for 6 years as both a general educator and a special educator. And the thing that I took away when it came to communicating with young kids was just to get down on their level, to stoop down, kneel down, get so that I was on eye level and I could have a communication with them rather than at them. So when photographing, hop down to their level, get excited with them, talk with them, let them know how excited you are. And instead of, not saying that you would, but sometimes when we're in a moment where we really want to capture something important to us, we kind of demand that they stand still and they look at the camera. Get down on their level and let them know, we're just going to take one picture. One picture. And when I get to the number 5, then you get to relax, or you get a lollipop, or yes, and I'm bribing, and that's okay sometimes. You get to play Xbox, whatever it is that they might want to do. Let them know on their level that you're a team in this, if you're not just documenting what is naturally happening. When it comes to babies and toddlers, it can be nearly impossible to get them to look at your camera. My biggest suggestion is to have somebody stand directly behind you, the shooter, the photographer, so that they can get the baby's attention. I promise you, if you have grandmom sitting over here calling their name and Aunt Donna over here calling their name, they're gonna look everywhere else other than at the camera. But if you have somebody standing directly behind you, shaking their favorite toy, calling their name, making crazy noises, they're gonna look at that person and it's gonna be in the direction of your camera. So it might even be necessary, if all of your family members are trying so hard to support you and calling your baby's name, to ask one of them to come stand behind you, keep doing the hard work, get excited with them, and everyone else can sit and enjoy the moment. The final tip that I have found that works like a miracle is show the kids you're photographing the back of your camera. They want to know what you're doing. Sometimes they want to do what you're doing. So showing them the back of the camera, seeing how adorable they are, what you're capturing, maybe even letting them push the shutter button while you're holding it, gets them involved in what you're doing rather than you just doing it to them. They're a part of the experience now, and it gets them extra excited. Believe it or not, posing large groups of family members can be even more difficult than capturing a smile on a 2-year-old that is running around and refuses to sit still. For some reason, getting a large group of adults to get into a picture in a timely manner can be really, really difficult. So I have a few tips for that as well. When working with a large group, you want to make sure that everyone's toes are lined up on a perfectly straight line. Don't ask me why, but 10 out of 10 times, a group of family members or friends will get into that U shape. I don't know why they think it's necessary, but every single time they do it, and I have to have them all back up into a straight line. There is a really good reason for this, and it's the focus. So if you're using a camera phone, your phone may automatically adjust and get everyone in focus, but you're gonna have a much more beautiful picture with a dreamier background if everyone is in the same focal plane on a straight line. If you're using a DSLR camera and shooting in manual, this is even more important because you wanna make sure that the people on the end aren't blurry or the people at the point of the U aren't blurry as well. To help my groups see what I mean, I typically try and draw a line with my feet or my toe and have them all put their toes on that line. And so if I draw a line and they realize, oh my gosh, their toe isn't where my foot just passed by, they know that they have to move up or step back. Speaking of focus, focus falls back. So if you're focusing on a person in the front row of your group, you're gonna capture the focal points of the people behind them as well. If you're focusing on the person in the back of the group, the people in the front are going to be blurry. And here's why. When I say focus falls back, it's because focus is 1/3 to the front and 2/3 to the back. So anytime you have more than one row of people, you wanna make sure that you focus on the person in the front row. Even if it's a kid and they're short, that's okay. Focus on the person in the front row and the people in the back will be more in focus than if you did it the opposite way. If you have more than 8 to 10 people, I definitely recommend putting them into 2 rows. If you are having trouble seeing over people's heads and making sure that everyone is visible, you can also use chairs or have the front row sit on a couch and the back row stand behind. If you don't do 2 rows and you have 11 people standing in a straight line, you're gonna have to back up so far that the people are only gonna be at the bottom of the screen. And you wanna make sure that you capture their whole bodies or cut them in a flattering angle. So let me explain that as well. I forgot about this. I wasn't gonna talk about this, but I wanna make sure I share this. When you're photographing people, don't cut off limbs. How did I forget this? You wanna make sure that you're not cutting off at like ankles or wrists. So you either wanna get the full body, cut right above the knee. And when I mean cut, I mean like how you're framing the picture. You don't wanna chop off anybody's body parts. So you wanna cut right above the knee, right at the waist or at the chest and get the full upper body. So when you have 2 rows, you want to make sure that all of your rows are very, very, very close together. They should be touching chest to back. The closer they are, the more that everyone's going to be in focus and the more connected they're going to look. Another thing that people love to do is to wrap their arms around the shoulder of the person next to them. That can work sometimes if the person next to them is holding on to their hand. If not, it's a big hand that just hangs over and looks, and I say big, not because their hand is actually big, but because the camera makes their hand look monstrous. And then that's all you see in the picture is somebody's big hand hanging out by somebody's face. So I recommend that everyone keep their hands down low. I say to keep their hands in their pockets or on the smalls of the back of the person next to them. You not only want your family members to look uncomfortably close from front to back, but also side to side. When we have big gaps between people in pictures, they look disconnected. They look like they don't like each other. So we want to always make sure that our family members in our group are touching, even if it's friends. You can put an arm around and just make sure your hand is not hanging over too far. You can wrap your hands around the arm of the person next to you, around the elbow, and make sure their sides are touching, and therefore they look more connected. All right, friends, we made it to the end. I hope that these tips and tricks are going to help you better photograph your families and capture all of the memories that you hope to keep forever. Those of you who are still here, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to email marketing@gbsmiles.com and let me know that you made it through the whole webinar. All you have to do in the comment section of your email is say, "Great Big Smiles." This is going to enable me to return the email with a $500 certificate for MaeWood Photography for a wedding package, a $100 certificate for a family package, and Great Big Smiles has also teamed up to give $1,000 off any comprehensive treatment, whether it be braces or Invisalign. So make sure you send your emails to marketing@gbsmiles.com, comment "Great Big Smiles," and I will make sure that I personally respond with all 3 certificates. So here is to capturing life with less stress, with a few more tools in your pocket, and for a great big smile. I hope you guys have a fabulous evening, and so much love to you all.